Another crazy one-handed video. Well, I have to do something that requires me to do this with one hand because one hand's holding the camera and the other one's holding this. Okay, so this is basically you remember this, right? This barrel right here. Okay, it's an aluminum barrel, but it only went to about here, and I had a plastic cover outside of it. Well, I decided that I was going to make this an adjustable ultra match barrel. And you can see on the inside, this is one of my wax treated barrels. Yes, Teflon and wax treated, at least 30 coats of wax in there. That means if a rubber tip hits the inside of it, if anything hits the inside of it, it just keeps flying anyway because it doesn't have any resistance. That's one advantage of wax coating. The other advantage is that it doesn't really bring up velocity. I think it brings it up a few. But I can't really, it's not really provable. But what it does do is it makes the let off a lot nicer, because you have less friction, and it uses the airspace that the plunger has to accelerate a lot more efficiently. I saw a very big difference in the fire strike. Not as much in the bird, but that might be because the bird just has so much air to it. Okay, so, gotta do this one-handed, not gonna be easy. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit how an Ultramatch port works. You can see the counter sync on the inside of it. You got 17/32 and 9/16. And by the way, this is adjustable. I can make it as close or as far. So other than the other really precise bird of prey barrel that has about 5/8 inch of a port, I can make this any size I want. Okay, so here's this. What happens is right now I have it set to 3/16. Height. So the right height is the height of the thumb. This is the height that the 17/32 releases from the dart and becomes 9/16. So what happens there is you can see it. You can see it right there. You have a ring. See that ring right there? What happens is once it releases, the dart centers around. And what it does is it doesn't touch the 9/16, but all the rest of the air goes flying out the front of, through the back of the dart to the front of the dart, but at the same time pushing it. It means that at the very end of the fire, for a very brief moment, the dart is being propelled by a cushion of air and nothing else. Basically what this does is it makes it almost like an air hockey table. And you can see how inconsistent. Now let's get a better picture of that. You can see how inconsistent a V3 really is. Even though I gotta hand it to you, the V3s out of the box are almost as accurate as my hand glued PAC-Ds. Almost, but not quite. But let's just say, if I ever ran into a problem with PAC-Ds, a shortage of PAC-Ds, anything, I could probably run with version 3s. I'd miss a lot more shots, but I could definitely play a game and hit people. Before I had the PAC-Ds, I was playing open wars against paintball and airsoft, but paintball lately. And I was playing with these dots, and I've hit quite a few people with these things. It's quite amazing. Let's get this focused a little better. I think it should focus. Yeah, there we go. Okay. There we go. Okay, so what happens is very simple. When the dot is firing, it reaches that point, and then it flies out in a cushion of air. Now, it's a very brief amount of time, and it really doesn't, doesn't help on the lower velocity stuff. On the high velocity stuff, it really helps. Which is interesting, because the high velocity stuff has a shorter period of time that this is flying through. But yet it takes the rest of the air that's left in the plunger, and it uses it to put a cushion of air around the dart as it's flying. So with this countersink here, it basically acts, as one friend described it, a choke. So let's say you have a 12 gauge shotgun, and you have a choke at the end of the shotgun to make the wad that's holding in the BBs behave a certain way. Either to open it up to make it open up the dots to give them open up the wad to give it more scatter, or close it more to make it more tighter. What this does here is it makes it so that the air goes past around the dart for a very brief amount of time. Now, one thing that you can think of is, okay, Chris, well, why not just make this long, really long? Why not just make this like 3 inches long? Well, if anybody ever remembers hearing the report on the Lincoln assassination, back in the day, you had black powder, okay? And the black powder bore BBs were usually smaller than the actual bore. And it was a tiny little pistol, little flintlock pistol the guy was using. The ball bearing itself was half an inch, I believe, but the ball bearing on the barrel on the inside was 0.55 inches on the inside. And what it did, it bounced around. See, if I take this and I do it past this point, this is going to bounce around. And what this does is, well, the dart can't really pass around. Why? Because once the exit port here, where the dart heel ends, what it does is it's already out of the barrel. It's just a very little out. See? It can't go, the air can't blast around the dart, run back into the head of the dart, and throw it off course. Because all it does at this point is it goes freely into atmosphere. So it goes shh, like that. It's really interesting. It looks like a big ring if you use smoke to do it. It looks like a big ring around the whole dart. And then you see this big, as the dart leaves, you see this big puff. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So if I made this any longer, let's say I made it so the dart is, I don't know, maybe here. What would happen is the high velocity air around it would collide with the head of the dart and it would make it bounce everywhere. This has been known to happen on Nerf guns and those artificial barrels. This is why I like the artificial barrels in a way. Why? Because I can put a nice aluminum barrel in there and put a seal breech kit in there. Nice. Kind of like I did with the shot fire. See? That was actually, I don't know how they did it, but that was with the breech. Perfect length for the plunger tube that they gave me. Perfect length. It was exactly that much. That's how much 73 seconds I needed. That much. And then I put a tab finger on there, and the rest is history. Almost 100 of those kits were sold before I just got exhausted, and other people like OC Nerf started making them, which I don't object to at all. Not only did he have a different method of doing it, where he used an outer pusher rather than inner, but he actually did a really good job. I really admire him. So if you ever wants to get a shot fire kit, get one from him. And if you want to do it like I did, I'll tell you how to do a pusher. It's not that hard, okay? But right here, what you have is a way that you can focus the air around the dart and out. You can control how the dart exits. Now, one of the big keys of accuracy with a Nerf dart is in fact how it exits. Is it spinning when it exits? Is it tumbling when it exits? Is it zigzagging when it exits? What is the dart doing? One reason it zigzags a lot of times is because, let's say you have a short barrel and you have a really big plunger tube, and let's say your exit pressure is like 45 psi or something, okay? Well, first I will usually rupture a dart because you have this one little period where it's going out like that. Oh, hold on. Like that. Well, you'll have this period where the dart is in the barrel, and inside it's hollow foam, right? So what happens? It explodes. Solid foam has less of a chance of doing that. That's why a lot of people went with solid foam in the nick. But if you have proper air ratio volumes, you don't have to worry about it. It's not gonna explode the dart. As a matter of fact, the hole makes it so the dart hugs the barrel a lot better. It gives you a better air seal if you do it correctly. So a lot of times what happens is, I have to hold it like this again, is it will fly out and this puff of air, come on, it'll fly out and this puff of air will drag it like that. What happens is the dart is heavier, it will stabilize, but it will be off course. That causes a lot of problems, because if this exit pressure is really high, it will do that. One thing an Ultra Match barrel does is it ensures that your exit pressure is low. No matter what, the dart, whatever extra air is left, is going to be used up at this last part, and so whatever is pushing the dart past this crown here is going to be relatively low pressure, maybe 5 psi, maybe 6, but it's not enough to throw the whole dart off course tail first. Darts behave a lot different than bullets and BBs, and that's why there are a lot of people getting in the field that don't really understand the importance of barrels. On a Nerf dart, the crown is so freaking important because inside you really have no other stabilization surfaces other than the surface of the barrel, okay? You have nothing else to reorient the dart other than the barrel going front and back. But the air is much more of an influence to the dot than even the barrel because it's a force that's pushing. And if you don't calculate your barrel volumes properly or you don't have a good crown, it's pushing after the dot actually leaves the barrel. The puff of air. Yeah, no kidding. You have a super light, literally airfoil on the back of each dot. And it's and if you think about it, since your center of gravity is up here, that back tail, especially if it's longer, this is one reason I don't like full-length darts all that much. A lot of people do. I understand. They're common. People like to go to wars. They like the convenience of being able to just go to a store and buying darts, I'm sure. But Stefan is getting more popular. It's straighter. It has a lot less stabilization issues. And I like the fact that you can fit them in your pocket easier and they don't bend or dent or anything like that. Finding them is not impossible. You just got to get used to finding Stefans. Just like everybody had to get used to finding rival balls and vortex discs. So what happens is, okay, this center of gravity. What if I were to hold this back here? Let me ask you a question. If I was to hold this back here, and the air was going, would it be harder to throw off course? Yes. This is why bullets, actual firearm bullets, are solid copper, lead, zinc. Okay, is because the center of gravity is the whole bullet. Now, of course, this thing's going faster. It's spinning. It doesn't need a hollow back. Well, Nerf needs a hollow back. What happens is your center of gravity is up here. Now, let me ask you something. If I knock it like this, would it have more of a tendency to bend? Yes. Then if I do that, see, I'm holding it like this, right? It's very hard for me with the same amount of force of my thumb and finger to move that dart. Now with the same amount of force, yeah, see? So because your center of gravity is way up here, any bit of air that hits that as it's flying out is going to throw it off course. Now, of course, what it's going to do is it's going to do this. It's going to skid through the air, straighten out, because your center of gravity is still going up and going to hit your target. There was this really cool picture once in Armageddon, and I didn't know how it was happening. But when I went into my friend's lab, and he had the slow motion camera, and he showed that the puff of air on the inside of it. He made a model, made a puff of air, and made it so when a dot flies out, it goes like this. Now, of course, he used a full-length dot because he didn't have any Stefans. I wish he did it with a Stefan. Would have been nicer. But he made the port about 70 millimeters long. Okay, instead of this, which is about an inch and an eighth. Okay, and what happened was he showed that the whole dot went like this. It skidded, and then it flew. There was this picture that Ice9 was shot of Ice9 with an ACC version 1 firing out of a 4B with a hopper. You guys have ever been to a war with Ice9? He likes this certain 4B blaster that has a hopper on it. And a lot of people borrowed it, used it. It's a good blaster. I mean, well, Ice9's a guy that can play with anything and win, okay? And he's a very, very good player. He's about 5'3". He's very hard to hit. He's been around the nick, you know. He's a guy I talk about a lot because he is actually just an extremely good nick player. A very good modder, very smart, very good at organizing games and coming up with unique stuff to play, you know, unique games to play. He came up with Carp. He came up with so many cool games. I remember one year we were trying to get missile attack right, and that was the first Armageddon I went to. And it actually went well. Well, that was a lot his doing and Baghead's doing and Apollo's doing. They all got together and just made the game what it is. But in anywho, you can see there's one picture where he's flying out like this, and you'll see it in the middle of the air just like that. Well, why is that so? Because the discharge from the barrel is actually throwing the tail of the dot off. Right. Now, if you want to get really accurate, you have to minimize that tail drag. You have to minimize all these destabilization issues. Well, this is one reason why the bird is so accurate. It's barrels. barrels and calculated air volumes and figuring out what the air is doing when the dart is leaving the barrel. Now, I started these very haphazardly. Accidentally wanted to make a, well, it happened with, I'll tell you what it started. It happened with the Ultra Match Fire Strike. Used to have a longer barrel than that because it used to be throwing full length darts. Now it's for Steffens. Okay? If you remember the first one, the barrel was like 7 inches long on it total. But the inside barrel was only 5 1/4. What happened was, I made a port on it to make it longer. I just did it for photographic reasons. I was going to cut it down, but then I fired a full-length elite out of it, and it just, hit whatever I fired at it. It was great. It was great. I had never seen it do that before, and holy shit, you know? Wow. Yeah, it was fantastic. So from there on in, I realized what it was doing. It happened quite by accident. I realized the air was going past around the dart because it was a larger diameter. And when doing that, it was stabilizing it. So, okay, so this is basically the secrets of an Ultra Match port. A lot of people don't use it yet. A lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people think there's better ways of doing it. Bird of Prey doesn't really need Ultra Match port because it's very balanced, but I redid some barrels with the Ultra Match ports. The newest one uses it, and it is extraordinarily accurate. It also does one more thing, okay, an Ultra Match port does. Your crown is on the inside surface of that, so if you mishandle it, drop it, whatever, you can remove the sleeve, play with it and fire it, or you can get to the inside of it and recrown it, or, you know, you can just, whatever. You can see that the outside of this plastic hangs out a little. This is Schoon rules right here, where everything has to have an orange plastic tip on it, so that when you hit somebody, you don't, like, totally, you know, freaking cookie cutter them with sharp metal. It's a good rule, actually, and I like it a lot. Yeah, so that's what that does right there, and that's how it works. And this one's adjustable, by the way. I can take the ride height, I can move this down, and I can make it, hold on, I can make it longer, or I can make it shorter. I can move this up and down. It's really cool. I finally have an aluminum bodied adjustable Ultra Match barrel for the bird. So I can do a lot of cool stuff with it. Well, until next time, this is Chris Cartea. Say, don't you go changing. And we are going to open that up one day and do a review. I know, I just am not the biggest flywheel person in the world. I know. I'll get into it one day. Peace out.